we're talking about calmness and anger, or calmness and zealotry, those which are appropriate and those which are not appropriate. We mentioned yesterday that the two main reasons for a certain kind of zealotry not to be appropriate is a zealotry that comes from a place of either lack of qualification or a person is not appointed as such. Now there are certain people that are appointed to do something. We mentioned yesterday, for example, a rabbi or a dayan or such people. מישהו מוטל עליו להוציא לפועל את עונשי התורה ולהסדיר את ענייניה ולאכוף את העבריינים ולמשמעת. A person who is appointed to enforce, to manage the communal observance, to improve the people who are doing things that are wrong, and to discipline them. כגון נביאי ישראל, for example, the prophets of Israel, ומלכיהם, the kings of Israel, ונשיאיהם, the princes of Israel, ושופטיהם, the judges of Israel, ושותריהם, and the officers of Israel. These are the kind of people who it is in their right, or it is their obligation to be zealous for HaKadosh Baruch Hu and to take care that the law is observed and followed. Ish kazeh, this kind of person, tzarich sheyeh salchan b'neinei ha'olam hazeh. His disposition should be the kind of person who is very easygoing in his day-to-day life, who is not a strict person, not a uptight person. V'kan'ai u'makpid b'neinei Torah, but he's a zealot and very particular in matters of Torah. See, when you find a person who's very scrupulous in their observance, but they're also nitpicky in every other area of their life, it doesn't say that they're special when it comes to Torah. They're just translating over their regular attitude to Torah. We mentioned before, a zealot, when Pinchas was a zealot, it makes a point. He was the son, Pinchas, ben Elazar, ben Aaron, he comes from a lineage of calmness, not a lineage of zealotry. He comes from a lineage of one who brings peace. And therefore this zealotry came from a place that was positive. Here, you can't appoint a person to a public office where it's in their nature to like to persecute people and to rat out people and to get people in trouble. This kind of person would be a very dangerous person to put in power. וצלחנותו וכעסו יכוון על פי רצון מי שרואה את חיצוניותו ופנימיותו לבבו. How does he know when to apply calmness or harshness? It has to depend on the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He has to know that Hashem knows inside of his heart what needs to be done. כמו שנאמר, like it says in Shmuel, כי האדם יראה לעיניים ואדוני יראה ללבב. People see what the eyes allow them to see, and Hashem is able to look at that person's heart. It's very difficult to know that people put on a show for you most of the time. You meet a person, you see a person, even people you know well. They present to you only what they want to present to you about themselves. To actually know who they are, only HaKadosh Baruch Hu can actually know who a person is, and the person should know, the judge should know, that the one who's keeping me in check is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because I must know that he is the one who sees my heart. Vilman musar mimamaroy talen, a person should learn from the teaching and dvarim that Hashem says, "V'halachta b'derchav," you should follow in his ways. Uktzad derchav henech hapayim v'noseh avon uver al pesha, and his ways are that he's slow to anger, he forgives averot, he overlooks transgressions. And from here, a person should learn liot salchan. Just because you are appointed to carry out Hashem's laws in the world doesn't mean that everything in the world you have to, we're 96, doesn't mean that everything in the world you have to pick on them for and persecute them for. Umidachav, hen kana ufoked avon, you also find that Hashem is zealous, jealous. He repays iniquities. Umizeh lemad liot tav'an b'chovot elav yitalev lo levater behem. He should learn that people should respect their religious obligations to Hashem, and he should not be lenient about those matters. Again, Rabbeinu Avraham is talking about balance. A person has to know both sides of the coin. You know, it says you should be like Hashem. Hashem is calm, Hashem visits the sick, but Hashem is also angry, so I want to be angry. No, you are an angry person in your nature. Don't try to be like Hashem in this regard. Most of his character traits are positive ones. And those are the ones you should emulate. Yes, there are certain people who have the obligation to emulate parts of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that we would normally not encourage. Okay, but if it's your natural inclination to go that way, then you're not the right person for the job. There should be understood already when a person is appointed to such a position.
That's fascinating.
In fact, the Mekubalim say that if a person is very strict about a certain thing in their lifetime, the chance is that in their previous reincarnation that they were the most violent offenders of that crime. For example, if you see a certain preacher that all they can talk about is one thing, you should know that they have been sent into the world to overcompensate for something they didn't do right in a previous lifetime. So the Mekubalim always suggest, don't be so quick to think you're so righteous in one area. If you're so righteous there, probably it means that in a previous journey, that was your flaw. And so it amuses me sometimes when I hear rabbis that all they can talk about is a woman's clothing and how a woman should look and how a woman should dress. Aside from the tzniut issues, the first step of modesty is not to talk to a woman about modesty. That's the first step of modesty. If they want to talk about it, let other women talk to them about tzniut. It's not your place. But even if it was, to excessively talk about something tells you that this person has an inclination towards such matters, and it should tell you to stay away from such a person in general.
They say there's nothing worse than a reformed drunk. But the thing is that sometimes it's concurrent. It's not just the past life idea.
It could even
Because
be,
we see that among the nations, that the priests who were most adamant about homosexuality, for example, ended up being closet gays
that's because those go hand in hand with each other. I'll try to give you an example of that. You just remind me of something. My parents told me that when he was younger, he was excessively machmir on things. That was his outlook on life. He would weigh his matzah on a scale at the Pesach Seder to make sure he was eating enough of a kazayit. He said, and so he knows the fact that today he mocks such behavior comes from a direct balancing out of where he used to be in life. And perhaps the person who doesn't care so much about that is because they weren't ever in the other extreme of the place, and therefore they don't have a need to balance it out so much. There's a lot to be said about this. Nonetheless, most of Hashem's ways are merciful, and only some of them are strict justice. לכן אפילו בענייני הדת לא ימהר לנקום ולהעניש אלא לאחר בירור ואורך רוח וחקירה ודרישה והבהרת חיוב העונש. They shouldn't be so quick to punish somebody, to avenge Hashem's honor. First there must be verification, deliberation, inquiry, figuring out if there really is a need for a punishment. What does this mean? You have to first find out that the rumor you heard is true. You can't just punish a person based on hearsay. And even if it's true, you have to find out if there's a reason. Why did it happen? Yeah, that person, they lit a fire on Shabbat. Sure they did. There was somebody in their house who was suffering from they got frostbitten. They were going to lose a limb, and they decided to light a fire. Well, they have to find that out. It could be that someone did something that you might have seen wrong, but it wasn't for a wrong purpose. And on top of that, then you have to understand if it even requires a consequence. There are sometimes people who do something wrong. They beat themselves up so much after they did that thing that is wrong, that sometimes that is already half of their consequence, living with that guilt that they did something wrong. To be a judge is not an easy thing. You have to know more than just, we don't...
It's like that Rabbi Ovadia Yosef TV story. Remember that story?
Yes, very good. About his guest who came to...
There was a man who came to see him whose wife was suffering with severe anxiety. She couldn't sleep or couldn't function at all. He told her, get her a television so she could distract herself. But it was in a very Orthodox neighborhood, and other rabbis came to him and condemned him, saying, how can you allow a television in our community? It's like no one watches it, and you're allowing such a thing. And Rabbi Ovadia said to this rabbi who was chastising him, mark my words, someday you're going to be forced to have a television as well. And certainly enough, he had like an emotional psychological disorder, and his doctor told him to get a television and watch shows, and he came back to Rabbi Ovadia and cried and asked for forgiveness.
There's a famous letter, thank you for bringing that up, it just reminded me, there's a famous letter from Rabbi Yosef Masas, in which he writes that there's a certain thing that if a person has a tooth injury, he held that a person, their tooth has fallen out, it hurts them, there's a terrible thing, he held that a person could go to a non-Jewish dentist on Shabbat. Obviously you have to, you're not paying them, you're not driving there, the neighborhood, the next door neighbor's a dentist, you could ask a non-Jewish dentist to take out the tooth for you on Shabbat, even though it's not life-threatening. And he writes, though there are rabbis who are strict, he writes, V'hamachmirim, those who were strict, lo ba'u lidei nisayon, they themselves never suffered any kind of tooth injury. or they would not have been strict. That's an infection. He said the reason they're strict is because they have the luxury to have never experienced such a thing. But if they would have experienced such a thing, they would find a way to be lenient about it. And this was a very wise words that it's easy for you to sit on a high chair or on a high tower and to judge other people, but you have to be with the people, from the people. There's no greater sin than avodah zarah. And over there Hashem says, and it was told to you, and you heard, and you went and you researched well, and you found that it was true and it was correct what you had heard. And this matter was done in the Jewish people. And it says, and you should take out that person. Obviously they were going to kill them. You find that punishment only comes after very, very long deliberation, research, looking into things. A rabbinic court didn't act the way other courts do, that they just, whatever they decided. This is an important concept to know. In general, the laws of the Torah are very hard to judge by. You have to have a person who is very knowledgeable in the areas of Torah to know that what he's saying, he really believes Hashem would sign off on. It's for that reason that it's none other than the Pele Yoetz, perhaps the most conservative of the Sephardic rabbis. Almost some would say that he's from our right-wing, Kabbalistic, intense rabbis. He suggests
he says are very
something similar. I want to...
No, not Pele Yoetz. I'm thinking of... what's that huge series that's published in English of a...
Oh, the Mamla Ezra.
Mamla, that's right wing.
Oh, the same. It's the same camp. The Sephardic rabbis who became Kabbalists were very. They were adamant about this. Let me just find you what I'm trying to see.
In other words, to find a Talmud Chacham to do your arbitration, not find a messenger of Hashem to do your arbitration.
Well, to find a Talmud Chacham who might not necessarily rule according to Shulchan Aruch, Chosh, and Mishpat, but we'll say, in our society we agree that houses are split this way, that divorce proceedings happen this way, and then they would, among themselves, agree to such things because the weight of being a dayan and a bedin and to say, listen, I rule this way, and this is what halakha wants for you, this is what Hashem wants for you, is a little difficult. It almost sounds contrary to what you might think would be the truth. But I'd have to find the source before I could tell you that this is what should be done. You'll find here, though, something interesting, and that is, in the past, you've heard me speak about rabbis who come, and those guys are going to go to hell, and this one drives on Shabbat, and their next accusation is always, and how do you know that your rabbi is good for nothing? That's always what they speak about. You should know, if I could draw a line, every single one of them, their common ground is, the first thing they do is invalidate the rabbi who... See, he lets them drive to the synagogue on Shabbat. See, he lets them... As if somebody ever asked me. As if someone ever asked me if they should keep kosher when they don't. That's a big assumption. Yeah, you're right. I don't throw people off my balcony. Can you believe that? I'm a little more of a mensch than that. But this is what they're demanding. Take them and stone them and whatever. What Torah says. This is the truth. He's a faker. He's lying to you about what Torah says. You obviously find here, the Rabbi Yonatan Halevy is saying, even in a world where you had batei din of rabbis that could put people to death because of any kind of avirah the Torah says to put someone to death, look what they went through in order to try to find a way to judge according to Hashem's side of chesed than to judge with Hashem's character trait of din, of strict justice. That wasn't the desire. You wouldn't have a dayan who was looking to hang people, to stone people, to kill people. It's a crazy world if someone could think like that. That's perhaps why what I said on Shavuot from Rav Chaim David Halevy, that before you want a religious state of Israel, you have to be very careful who you think is going to run such a state of Israel. It's going to be those guys who are willing to hang everybody in the streets and stone them to death. You might just want to prefer a secular state of Israel. What is a religious state of Israel? How would you govern a country where most people are not religious? That's what we spoke about in Shavuot. We began and we showed that most times in Jewish history we didn't govern the Jewish community by Torah law. It was just too difficult. We judged, even David HaMelech in his time, there were civil courts. There was such a concept, and a person who wants to talk about a religious government and a religious state of Israel, and they don't want it to look like what ISIS looks like in the Middle East, Chas v'shalom, they have to spend a significant amount of time studying rabbinic literature before they come to such crazy conclusions. Because you could read our Torah from the English side of the Chumash and become fundamentalist Jewish terrorist. Such a thing could happen, Chazal, if it hasn't happened.
It happens in some fundamentalist, non-Jewish communities.
And this is clearly not where, even the Torah that tells us an eye for an eye. I see, you poke out an eye, his eye should get poked out. Our rabbis, when they read this pasuk, it was so blatantly obvious to Chazal that there's no way in the world that that's what Hashem meant. It couldn't be that's what Hashem meant. That's how our rabbis say, money, financial compensation for what a person lost from their eye. Is that a stretch? No. Chazal knew that the giver of the Torah will not create a world in which everybody is being put to death every 10 minutes. You have to have such people leading Am Yisrael. You can't allow other people to do that job.